For more Magic the Gathering resources, check out my friends at paperchampion.net and Kitchen Table MTG. Hey everybody, this is Tao at The Forge, and today I want to talk to you about a pet deck that I kind of put together. It's a deck that I've always wanted to build, but never really did, mainly because it doesn't seem like it's very strong. Now, it's a really fun one to play. Basically, it's a black-green Obliterator deck. Alright, so the key to the deck is playing Phyrexian Obliterator. Now, Phyrexian Obliterator seems amazing, right? So it's a 5/5 for 4, right? It has trample, and whenever a source deals damage to a Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. And that means like lands or anything, really. So Phyrexian Obliterator just seems amazing. A 5/5 for 4 is already above curve, comes with trample, and then if you ever do damage to it, then you have to sacrifice that many permanents. Like, that's ridiculous. It's super harsh, right? So, you think like, well, why isn't this played everywhere, right? And that's actually what I thought of when I first saw it, is that the reason why is actually because of the 4 black mana cost to cast it. Now, it's really restrictive when you get the 4 black mana cost to go there. Basically, you're looking for like almost like a mono black devotion type deck, and it makes it really hard to run any other colors. And as you can see just from glancing here, I'm splashing a little bit of green, but not very much. Otherwise, like, the deck is mostly all just black, because you pretty much have to do that. Now, the other problem is that as soon as you put it out there, if your opponent has any removal, they're going to save the removal for this, and they're going to want to get rid of this right away. Although it is very difficult to remove, because if you double lightning bolt it or something, you've got to sacrifice a whole bunch of permanents. But Path to Exile gets rid of it, and Fatal Push and things like that have ways of getting rid of it. Same thing with like those Oblivion Stones or Stasis Snares or things like that. So there's ways to get rid of it, and so you're kind of restricting yourself just to get this out, and then it just gets removed fairly easily sometimes. And that's what I was kind of thinking, and that's why I've been reluctant to put it together. There's kind of a heavy cost that goes with a Phyrexian Obliterator as well. Like, in paper, a Phyrexian Obliterator is like $30 or something, or $25 or something like that. It's it's kind of like for a card that's not really played anywhere, it's generally like kind of overpriced. Like, I think it's because it's such a niche card. It's like very interesting, but people like to try and build around it, but it's very difficult to build around. Anyways, I thought I'd give it a shot, and I had a little bit of fun with it, and I'm going to play a few more matches this week and try and upload those matches as they go. So anyways, of course, let's go through the deck. So the core of the deck, of course, is 4 Phyrexian Obliterators. They basically, I just talked about this, they're super hard to remove and can make things very difficult for your opponent. I have 2 Damnations. Okay, so 2 Damnations. Basically, I want to be able to destroy my opponent's creatures, right? So to clear the board all the time, right? So I'm not afraid of actually destroying some of my own creatures, because, especially as you can see, I have Geralf's Messenger. If I destroy Geralf's Messenger, he just comes back stronger anyways, so that's not always a big deal. But still, I don't think Damnation's a 4-of. I put it as a 2-of. Let's go back to the low end of the curve just to start. We got a removal package, so Duress is some card, so Hand Disruption, Inquisition of Kozilek as well, and you can go 2 and 2, or whatever combination you want with those, just depending on what you feel is appropriate. It's hard to say. I've only played 2 matches with this deck, so it's hard to say like what the right combination is. But 2 and 2 seems to be okay. Afterwards, we have like 4 Fatal Push. So a Fatal Push is actually pretty good, in that you can, it's basically the best form of black removal. Right, so I put that as a 4-of, because basically what we want to do is be able to just get rid of our opponent's stuff like as soon as it comes out onto the battlefield, and basically just kind of smash face as soon as we can. Now, the rest of the deck is essentially like just a mono black good stuff type deck. right? So we got Duress, Fatal Push, Inquisition, all good black stuff there. And we got Gatekeeper of Malakir. Now, Gatekeeper of Malakir is a 2/2 for 2, which is on curve, but you can kick it and force your opponent to sacrifice a creature. That's actually worked out really well. It's good creature removal. It's almost as good as Fatal Push, but also just as good as it's really good against Bogles and other things like that. So, your opponents can put down like some really big creatures. As soon as you can put this out, then you can get rid of those creatures as well. Vampire Nighthawk is a really great black creature as well. Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. This is basically going to just hold your opponent back until you can buy you some time to set everything up for your Obliterator. And then, of course, Geralf's Messenger. So 3/2 for 3. Now, again, you can see this taps for 3 black, right? So that's a really tough one to get. But because we're almost all mono black anyways, it's actually it's not too bad. So when this enters the battlefield, your opponent loses 2 life. It's undying, so if it gets killed, it comes back as a 4/3, and then your opponent loses 2 life again. And one thing you can technically do is sacrifice your own creature, right? So let's say, for instance, your opponent has 2 life left, right? What you can do is play your Gatekeeper of Malakir, kick it, right, and then sacrifice your own Geralf's Messenger. When that comes back from the battle, from the graveyard, your opponent loses 2 life, and that's basically like, kind of like a pyroclasming, or, well, I guess it goes to your opponent, not their creatures, but still, it's a way to take out that last 2 life, just in case you have it, or in case you need to. Now, the only reason why we're splashing green is basically for this little green package here. Right, and you can see it all just takes 1 green, and so it's not really that important to get it. Like, mainly our main plan of attack is just to go straight mono black good stuff and just attack and beat them with our creatures. But we do have Ulvenwald Tracker, a 1/1 for 1, which is on curve, but target creature you control fights another target creature. Now, the reason why this is good is because we have very efficient creatures, and what we can do is we can basically force our opponent to make bad trades, right, with this. Now, one of the good things that you can do is, let's say, for instance, your opponent puts out, like, I don't know, like a 6/6 or something like that, and this has actually happened. I think that was a 5/5. You can force your opponent to fight your Phyrexian Obliterator. Now, of course, you're going to lose your Obliterator, right, in that case, but your opponent's going to have to sacrifice 5 permanents. Like, 5 permanent, that's enormous, right? So, that is just going to wreck your opponent. It's such a hard thing to deal with. The other thing that we have is essentially two more sets of the same thing. Savage Punch, so target creature you control fights a target creature you don't control. And because the creature we're going to target is the Phyrexian Obliterator most of the time, we do get the Ferocious trigger, right, because it has power 4 or greater, and so it becomes a 7/7. So there was a time, I think it's in the first match I played, where my opponent had like a 6/6 out, and then I was able to play this, or it was a 5/5. I pumped them up with this, and then my opponent had to sacrifice 5 or 6 different permanents. That's just awesome. And really, it's a really cheap common, only costs 2 to cast it, and that's just really, really sweet. The only problem with this is at sorcery speed, so you have to do it on your turn. Setessan Tactics is essentially the same thing, but in this one you can get more than one of your creatures to do this. So you can actually force a lot of bad trades on your opponent's side, but also get your Obliterator to tap out, or to take a whole bunch of damage from your opponent. Now, he only gets +1/+1, but still, like, it's going to force your opponent to sacrifice a whole bunch of stuff, right? So what you can do is, because this is an instant, you can cast it on your opponent's turn and just kind of mess up stuff like that. That's pretty much the whole deck, except for the lands. So let's go to the lands. Now, originally I was playing 6th Forest. I just had swapped out swamps with forests. But I found that I was getting too much green mana, and because you need so much black mana, like Gatekeeper of Malakir, you always want to kind of try and play with it kicked if you can. So you need 3 black for that, 3 black for Geralf's Messenger, 4 black for Phyrexian Obliterator. It really sucks if you got 2 black in a forest, right? So it's not the best. So that's why I put in only 2 forests, and I toned it down a bit and put more swamps in. Right, so we got 2 forests, 4 Overgrown Tombs, which are swamps and forests. You can pay 2 life and have it come in untapped if you need. 4 Woodland Cemeteries. For those of you guys that have been watching my videos, you know that I love these lands, right? The ones where if it comes in tapped unless you control a swamp or a forest. But because we have so many swamps and forests, like even our Overgrown Tombs count as swamps and forests, so like it's highly unlikely that these are going to come in tapped. So these Innistrad lands are just actually pretty sweet. I really like them, and for some reason they're really cheap dual lands. Like even though like I like the temples and like the fast lands and pain lands and stuff like that, they come in like they're super expensive, but these lands here, I don't know why, but they're actually fairly cheap. So I don't know why they're not purchased, like why they're not more expensive, but hey, I'm not complaining. And then basically that's 10 lands, and then the other 14 is just 14 swamps, right? So just straight up 14 swamps, and that's pretty much it. Now going to the sideboard, we're running just a standard package. Now again, people that have watched my videos, you know that I like to have like some common things in the sideboard. So I've got 2 Relic of Progenitus to deal with any graveyard shenanigans, 2 Spellskites to deal with burn, and also to deal with burn and also Bogles, right? One of the things that we're weak against is burn, because like basically they can remove a lot of our stuff fairly efficiently. Ensnaring Bridge. Now Ensnaring Bridge is kind of a weird one, because you think like we are an aggro deck, so why would we ever want to like go in and basically use an Ensnaring Bridge, because our creatures can't attack either? Well, the reason why is because if for some reason our opponent can get the jump on us, like let's say for instance they're generating just so many tokens, that they can do the sacrificing or whatever, then what we can do is we can actually hold up an Ensnaring Bridge and then hide behind the Ensnaring Bridge until we can until we get a Setessan Tactics or something like that, and then force the sacrificing to go. So, and then what we can do is at the end we can actually force like our Ulvenwald Tracker, for instance, to fight our Phyrexian Obliterator. Then we can actually, because it does damage to him, then what we can do is force to sacrifice a permanent. We sacrifice our Ensnaring Bridge, and then we can go on the attack when we're ready, after we built up our board state. I haven't had a chance to pursue that, but that's my plan with Ensnaring Bridge. Basically just to put it up as a shield until I can get everything online, and then afterwards, go to like just start attacking when I'm ready. Right. The only other thing I thought to put in there right now is just some artifact and enchantment hate. It seems like in the online meta that there's just a ton of that, and I got kind of hit hard against it in one of the matches because I didn't have any way of dealing with any enchantments or artifacts. So I put in 2 Naturalize, so destroy target artifact or enchantment. That's just basically a dual one, and 2 Back to Nature, which I really like, is just destroy all enchantments, just flat out, just destroy all the enchantments the opponent has, and not just the opponents but also your own enchantments as well. But the problem is we don't have any enchantments. So the other thing I had thought to put in was Necrogen Mists. So I decided to take them out because the discard, I'm not too sure about it. I might put it back in, but Necrogen Mists maybe as a 2 of. I just found that by the time I got it out, it wasn't really that effective. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with it. Maybe I would take out an Ensnaring Bridge and a Naturalize, and put in one Back to Nature and one Ensnaring Bridge, and put in 2 Necrogen Mists. So actually, let's just do that now. Necrogen, if I can spell it, Necrogen. All right, so 1 Ensnaring Bridge out, 1 Back to Nature out, and we'll throw in 2 Necrogen Mists. Oops, and 1 Ensnaring Bridge out. There we go. Alright, so that's how I would actually probably choose to run this. Overall, I think that it's actually surprisingly strong, although I haven't played any, like, serious, like, blue-white control or, affinity or Jund or anything like that. It actually is, I think it's actually a pretty good deck, and it's fun to play. It's definitely flavorful, and people that like forcing your opponent to fight your creatures and then have to sacrifice all their stuff just feels good. Anyways, that's the deck for today. If you do like the decks, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's that time again for a random card review. Now, I haven't done one of these in a little while, but I thought I'd get back into them. Alright, so let's go with Thran Dynamo. Thran Dynamo is from Urza's Destiny. It's an uncommon, also available in Commander and Arch Enemy. Okay, so I imagine its legality is not in Modern. Okay, so nope. Alright, so let's take a look. It's a 4 mana cost. You can tap it, add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. I would say this is actually a pretty sweet card. Being able to, so you basically give up turn 4, but then every turn after that, you can add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. That's actually huge, especially if it's, if it's in a colorless deck or a mostly artifact-based deck. And I can see why it's actually available in Commander, because, in a Commander deck, that sort of, mana gain is just enormous. So, overall though, it's not available in Modern or Standard, obviously. I'd say it's it's a pretty sweet card though for what it is. Like in the formats where it would be allowed, this would be almost like a killer card. Like to tap for 3 extra mana is just huge. If you consider most of the signets and stuff like that, they basically only allow you to tap for 1. Right? It's almost unheard of for you to tap for 3 colorless mana repeatedly over and over again. So yeah, I agree with the 4-star rating. It's only 4-star because it has to be fit into a very specific kind of deck. But yeah, this is a really great card. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.